everyone. My name is Britt Arnold. Great to see such a big group. I was not expecting 36 people, I think. So 36 women, that is amazing. And I'm very happy to be here. I am the current president of Tegler Construction and Supply. We sell construction materials. I started the company, I bootstrapped it bottom up with nothing but the savings in my bank account 8 years ago. I can't believe it's been 8 years. We are currently located at Trade Point Atlantic. So you're all familiar with the Key Bridge. We're right there. It's in our backyard. I will get into my story and how I got there, but currently that is what I'm doing. I'm running a 8-year-old business at this point.
You both are running your own companies. You forged a way there. So talk about your leadership style. What does that mean to you? How did that develop? What does that look like?
So instead of telling you what I think my leadership style is and making it up in my head, maybe what I want it to be, I just went to the top 3 people that I work with the most, and I asked them today because I'm like, I'm not going to give you some idea. And one of them is my current vice president, who he resigned because he's moving back to Australia. So he can say whatever he wants. So, and there were a lot of through lines, but he said, you take on more than you should. You're in the minutia and you micromanage. That's what I got from him. But the through line with all 3 employees that I asked were tough, demanding, has high expectations, and intense. Then I also got thoughtful. Number 1 priority is making sure that our well-being is first and foremost and that we have the opportunity to grow. And as I'm navigating through my company, I am always thinking of employee growth more than anything else. And that encompasses everything, not just financial, the opportunity to move up the ladder. It could be to go to a different company. And that is what I lose sleep at night, is making sure my employees have that opportunity and knowing that their families are also taken care of. And then as far as the piece on micromanaging and being in the minutia, while I know that has a negative connotation a lot of times, and if you feel yourself in this, not in your job role, if you feel like you're kind of always overarching, then I can tell you every almost penny where it's being spent, and we're doing hundreds of projects, and it's because I care. I really, really care, and I want to be in the trenches with my team. However, I am at a point where I can definitely bottleneck the company at times, and that's the transition period. It doesn't get easier with times. I'm 8 years in, and it's as hard as it was when I got fired, which I was almost forced into starting my company, which I'll get into. It's just different challenges. And now I'm at the point where the company is outgrowing me, and I have to loosen my grip. My knuckles are like white, and so now I'm trying to figure out that transition. It's very hard. And as a small business, when you lose your VP, who's taken on so much, now I'm taking on that, trying to hire, and I'm trying to just keep my head above water right now. As I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about like, oh my gosh, all the things going on and the survival of the company and my employees. But that's how I would describe myself. And I'm working on all of it so the feedback, the real-time feedback from the people around you is so valuable. You don't have to guess. Don't guess who you are. Get it real and then work on it.
So what you were expecting to hear? Is that what you thought you were projecting? And is that what you wanted to look like?
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't shocked by any of it, but I appreciated the honesty. No one held back. Which I mean, I have developed thick skin over the years from doing these types of things. But the one thing that I really loved about that type of feedback is they were comfortable enough around me to give it. Mm-hmm. So if nothing else, I was like, that I'll take away. No matter how hurtful or alarming some of it can be, they were comfortable to tell me. So that says something.
That is reflective of your leadership style. And we talked about micromanaging in here today. And some people said, well, no, it's what did you say? Effective management. That's what it was.
Whoever said that?
I think it was Samantha somewhere. Let's talk about how you all started. How you started your businesses, why you started that. Where did you find within yourself to take that leap and to now be where you are with it?
Soccer was my entire life. So I played growing up, and then I went to UConn and I played pro ball. So the league at that time, the league in the States was not very financially stable. So the coaches gave me an ultimatum, 2 to 3 days to get up and move to France to play. It's a club, if you're familiar with soccer, it's a club called PSG, a really strong club in France. And at that time, I really had to make a decision. Did I want to continue to chase these dreams, barely surviving financially, move my entire life to a foreign country in 2 to 3 days? Or was I going to get into the business world? And that's when I decided, like, I'm going to get into business. That was a really hard time for me because I know all of you have at one time identified with something. And I identified with soccer. But when I tell you that was it, like, that was it. So all of a sudden, I didn't have this identity and I didn't know who I was. But when everything changed for me, I was able to tell myself, okay, you don't have the sport of soccer anymore, but business can be a sport. And that's when it all clicked. I was like, oh, we're going to get competitive with business. So right after soccer, I went to work with and for my uncle, who happens to still be the vice president at Grasmick Lumber. So Lou Grasmick and Nancy Grasmick have been in my life for a very long time. Lou Grasmick was one of my mentors, and I learned a lot from him. And I'll tell the story because I tell it all the time, and it just is such a reflection of who Lou was. So when I first started at Grasmick, I knew nothing about construction, but they were like, we want somebody to come in and get our face out in the community, talk to customers, vendors, stakeholders. So I said, great, trust my uncle. Quite frankly, I have nothing else to do, no other skills, so I'll take it. So Lou, I go into his office, and at that time, he wasn't doing a lot hands-on in the company, but he would sit at his desk, and the minute the phone rang at Grasmick Lumber, he was picking up. He just liked to talk to people. He was in his 80s. He wanted something to do, and he came to the office every single day. So he would pick up the phone, and somebody would ask for something, and it was a product that Grasmick didn't have. And he'd say, yep, we'll get it for you, no problem. He'd put the phone down, he'd say, what the hell is that? He'd call 3 salespeople in, tell them what it was, and make sure everybody around him was going to source that product so he could call the customer back and find it. And that's when I learned, oh, he's resourceful. And every time, and it wasn't manipulative because we got it done, and he put a lot of pressure on us, but that was the type of mentality he had. So I came from soccer, that type of competitive background, to Lou. From there, I had a customer that I was doing business with. It was Merit Properties and Construction Services in CVC. And we had like a really great rapport when I was their, I guess, sales rep at Grasmick. So I ended up going to work for Merit. And I talked to my uncle about it because I was really enjoying it. And he said, no, go there because you want to see what's on the other side of the table. How are our customers experiencing it? And Merit was where I was really able to build my network. And I got to see everything, the whole gamut, from real estate to construction to acquisitions, all of it. I was able to put all the pieces together. But what I really did, and this is a piece of advice, and I know you probably are all doing it, is building my network. I would go into so many events a lot by myself. I was scared. I didn't know anybody, but I would force myself to talk to people. Until now, I can really get in the room with anybody and be comfortable. I still get nervous for sure. I mean, I'm sweating right now, but learn that skill to put yourself out there and please do it because it's the only reason I was able to start Taylor Construction and Supply. So fast forward, I was at Merit. I absolutely loved Merit. I learned so much, but I was too immature and young to realize that there's so much more than the numbers. Because I was putting up great numbers. If you looked on paper, like getting all these things done, but when you're in an office and there's a lot of people, there's a lot more than the numbers. There's the relationships. There's the way you interact with people. And I was like, I'm going to put blinders on and work, and there's more to it. And I just didn't understand that. So it didn't work out. They fired me, and I was in this position where I didn't know what I was going to do next. Finally, one day, I started my own LLC, and this is after just months. I just bought, a house. I had lost everything, and I didn't have my parents to support me financially. I was by myself, just the savings in my bank account. So that's the day I decided I was going to bet on myself. Months after getting fired, that I was going to bet on myself. and start my own company. And the timing happened to be impeccable because Port Covington and Trade Point Atlantic had just unveiled their master plans. And as many of you, if you're familiar with the projects, know, about 30 to 40% of those projects are allotted for minority-owned companies. So I was like, man, if I could get a small piece of even one of those, I could float my entire business off of that. And that was the belief I entered into starting Taylor Construction and Supply. And here we are 8 years later in a multi-million-dollar business, and now we're at Trade Point Atlantic. We're located there, so total full circle.
Where do you find within yourself to pull from to say, I'm gonna bet on me? Some people just get to those positions and they're stuck. They don't then take that next step to have a multi-million-dollar company. They don't take the next step to then be able to say, you know what, I have what other women need, and I'm going to give that to them. You went through all of that, and you could stay right there. That's enough grief and pain and a lot going on. So where do you pull from? What is the next? How do you advocate for yourself in that position? Where does that come from?
It's a really good question. I don't know I have an exact answer for where I pulled it from. I think for me, it was probably from fear. I think that can be like the best motivator, but it can also paralyze you. So you can dance with it and you can get it to propel you, or you can let it hinder your life. And it's a decision we have to make. We have to look inside ourselves and make it and bet on ourselves. And I was a scared female in my 20s that didn't know what I was going to do, and I was trying to enter the most male-dominated industry in the world. Can you imagine what that looked like from an outsider looking in? Like, come on, like, really? And what I had to tell myself, and I still tell myself this today, like when I'm sitting across the table talking to somebody, no matter who it was a banker. I got turned down by every single bank except for one, M&T Bank, and I still bank with them today. But I was like, it's a person. It might be a lawyer, it might be a really smart banker, but they're a person and they have feelings and they understand stories. So as we're talking about obstacles in starting a company, especially as a female, it's very hard to get capital. And if you don't have money, you can't run a business, especially a business that has products. How are you going to buy them? The other challenge is I don't have any credit. So like, a net 30 or net 60 days, I didn't have any company history. So my vendors were like, we're not going to give you net 30. You got to pay when you buy the material. But my customers were expecting those terms from me. So what I really had to do, again, going back to the relationships, was leverage them. So I went to Grasmick Lumber, and they didn't know it, but they were my bank for the first, because they gave me terms just because they believed in me. And I utilized their terms and sold the lumber that they sold me just for a few customers. So you have to get really creative and really scrappy, and you can't always follow the rules. Sometimes you got to do things outside of the rules and break them. I mean, it's just because it's hard and it's challenging. When I went to M&T, why would they lend any money? By the way, they gave me a $50,000 line of credit and a $50,000 term loan, and I thought I was the richest company in the world. And I had no company history to show them whatsoever. But I told the guy's name was Mickey Gorman. He's no longer with him, but I will never forget him. And I told him my story and what I believed in and what I was trying to do, and they took a chance on me as a bank. The banks don't take a lot of risks, but he was human, and he listened to my story. Reggie Jarvis, who I'm still with today, he's our bonding agent. Same thing. He gave me $100,000, $200,000 bonding capacity for construction. A lot of times to bid on projects, you need this capacity. I didn't deserve it. I had nothing to show him, but we connected. So I think it's just believing in yourself, telling your story, and sitting down with people, and you have to enroll them in your life. You have to enroll them in your vision. Otherwise, you're going to be enrolled in someone else's vision. And it's very important to remember. So you're always just sitting across from a human. No matter who they are, what positions, or how much life experience, you have a lot of value to bring. So just remember that.
When you have to summon courage, when there's a decision on the table and you've got a find the courage to go one way or the other? Do you have an incident like that?
Yeah, so many. One that really comes to mind from a business perspective is when I first started the business. When you start a business, you're hungry. So you start taking on work that you don't really want and was never in your vision. You start a business, you think you're going to do one thing, at least me, and I'm doing everything but the one thing I thought I was going to do. So I came from at Marriott, we did general construction. So we were but I wanted to be in the supply side, just selling construction materials. But I had all these relationships I had developed, and they said, well, our relationship was with you. We'd really like you to build this restaurant. And so I said, sure, definitely. I had no labor, nothing, but what I did, I subcontracted work out. So I started developing this GC side. We did interior work. So if you've ever been to Fed Hill, we did some of those restaurants, some hospital work. And simultaneously, I was building the supply side, which was mainly lumber at that time. But what happened was we were selling to general contractors, and I was developing a general contracting side of the business. So you see, all of a sudden, it's very conflicting. So I had a GC sit me down and say, Britt, we want to buy materials from you, and we enjoy working with you, but we feel like we're supporting a competitor. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, we're so small compared to you. I don't even know why we're on your radar. But everybody starts small. We all start from nothing. So he was, and that all of a sudden was that crossroads. The problem is when you're young and you're just starting a company, you have very little revenue, and that was more than 50% of our revenue. But I knew it was not the right path. It's a lot of risk, lower profit margins. It's not what I had set out to do. But at that time, I decided, I made a hard decision to dissolve that side of the business and go full steam ahead into just supply. Now here we are, a full supply company. We do a lot more than lumber, and it has paid off tenfold. But in that moment, it's so hard when you're losing 50% of your revenue and you're barely making any money to start. But that is, as we get older and we know ourselves, it's staying true to who you are. And just something I'll add to that, I just became a mom 9 months ago to my daughter. And thank you. So anyone, it's so game changing because I've never known myself or been able to be as true to myself as I had this past 9 months. Because I just have so much more meaning and intention that I can say no. Because when it comes to my daughter and Moxie, there's just so much more intention in my life. So there's these crossroads that we go through that I think we develop that ability to say no and to be more aligned with who we are. But I think it just takes time. I don't think we can just go into make our minds up. It takes these different moments in time and hardships. The last thing I'll say is anyone that is going through a crossroads or a transition or a hardship, these are the moments right now you'll look back on, and these are what will define you. It won't be your wins. You will not look back at your wins and be I'm really glad that happened. It'll be the moment you're going through the shit, that's going to get you to the other side. So anytime you're in it, just know this is the defining moment for you.